In the last couple of years, we've come a long way. A lot has changed with my life, my work, my career, and when it comes to the gear I've been using, some things have changed pretty drastically while others not so much. All things aside, I think this is a little overdue. So first things first, let's go ahead and talk about the bag itself. This is the Brevity Scout 2. Some of you guys might remember that I've been a longtime supporter and fan of Brevity and everything that they've been doing in the creative community. They've been making some really awesome bags. Actually, back in 2018, in the first camera bag video I did, you guys might remember I had the original camera backpack that they made. Since then, they've come a really long way. They've made updates in version 2s, some serious improvements to their bags. This one in particular is the Scout 2. I actually used to use their Roamer, which is like a little bit more of a rucksack style bag. But this one is a more everyday style kind of minimalist bag. I personally really like the design of it. Top handle, very simple but effective pockets. So let's go and take a look around the exterior. So on the front here, we have this nice little lower pocket that's got a little magnet action going on here. Kind of satisfying. With a zipper that has a nice big pocket that's kind of, what do I have in here? Candy? Yeah, I guess you never know when you're gonna need a little sugar on a shoot, but beside the point. Up above, we have another zipper that's just kind of a big open pocket, goes across the front. Got a mask, because, you know, COVID and stuff. On the sides, we have two nice mesh water bottle pouches. Easy water bottle here. And on the other side here, of course, we have the trusty Joby Gorilla Pod. I'm sure you guys know that pretty much every YouTube filmmaker has one of these. I mean, I've been using it for pretty much as long as I can remember doing YouTube. These things honestly are so handy. I mean, as much as it seems as though people are gravitating toward gimbals nowadays, I still personally like to run pretty minimal and pretty lightweight. And this thing can just add like a little bit more stabilization than shooting handheld. So it's nice in a pinch. If you need a gimbal, you need a gimbal, but a gimbal can very easily fit in this pocket as well. It's got this little buckle that can lock it down across the side. A small travel tripod could go in here as well. Plenty of options. I like that there is water bottle pockets on both sides. There's plenty of bags out there that only have one, which is really frustrating because if you need to carry a water bottle, but also one of these, you're out of luck. And then up here, we have a nice little zipper that has a ton of little pockets, of course, for pens and things. And then I have my Samsung T5 SSD. This is what I use for when I'm editing on the go, dumping off extra footage. And then we got a USB-C hub adapter. This has a card reader, a couple of USB type A ports, HDMI port. Seems as though these things are pretty much essential nowadays. Anything else in here? Moving on to the top of the bag, sort of the main compartment, we have a handle up top that actually snaps together. This is actually super convenient for carrying it. I mean, you don't always necessarily need to have your camera bag slung over your shoulder. So there's a variety of handles, this one on the top, and then also one kind of conveniently on the back in the middle. Makes it really nice for if you're like loading this up into an overhead compartment on a plane, something like that. But if we pop open the handle, we have a nice, large main compartment of the bag, kind of separated into a couple of sections, but I'll show you that more here in a second. In here, we have the charger for my laptop. Again, we'll get into that in just a minute. And then we have a little pouch of miscellaneous gear. This is the Think Tank Cable Management 10 V2, but these things are really awesome. It's just a really simple little zipper pouch that has a clear thing on the front of it so you can easily see what's inside of it. I've got a bunch of random stuff in here. I've got a little USB power bank with a short little lightning connector on it to charge my phone or anything else that needs to be charged via USB. A dual charger for my Sony a7 III, a couple of USB-C cables, a random cable tie. I think these are by Think Tank. I think they're called cable whips. I could be wrong. I know there's a bunch of different versions out there. There's like bongo ties. You can find these on Amazon. These are honestly the most handy thing ever to just wrap around cables if you have long cables, similar to like what these have, the little Velcros wrapped around them. These things are honestly great. I just keep a couple of them randomly around the bag or in the studio. an extra quick release plate. This is an Arca Swiss plate. These are my personal favorite plates to use for all of my equipment for quick release because they're super small and super compact and really, really cheap, easy, universal. I've got a couple of these random little tiny multi-tools. This one has a bunch of Allen keys and this one has a couple of Phillips and flatheads. These things have honestly come really, really in handy when I'm just out on the go, so I don't have to carry around a big multi-tool. These things are tiny. I guess the only downside to them is that because they're so small, you can't really get like a lot of torque. So if a screw is super tight or like a plate on the bottom of your camera is like super stuck on there, these might not cut it, but in most cases, they'd get the job done. So I love having these things. USB power adapter, you can never have enough of these things. This is the battery plate that actually goes on the bottom of my A7 III because I have the grip on there. We'll talk more about that later. And then just a random, this is one of the 3.5 millimeter Apple adapters to I don't know why this is in here. So what's convenient about this top pocket up here is that it's big enough to obviously, of course, fit. We have, you know, the laptop charger, and then we have all the small accessories in the pouch, but it's also big enough to fit very easily a sweatshirt or some extra clothes if you're traveling. And then if I'm going on a shoot where I need my drone, I have my Mavic 2 that's all packaged up really nicely in this little carrying case from Tenba, which just so happens to conveniently fit perfectly in the top pocket as well. And then there should be enough room in the top here for the little accessory pouch as well. And then the laptop charger can just very easily go in the little mesh pocket on the side. So moving on to the pocket you guys actually all care the most about, where actually all the gear is. Oh yeah, one more pocket I forgot to mention, this cool little hidden pocket. Perfect for passport. No, I don't just keep my passport in here, it's just for demonstration. The bag itself opens up clamshell style from the back, which I personally really like. Gives you nice, easy access to all of your gear. And well, let's just go ahead and talk about this. In the laptop sleeve, of course, we have the HP NV15. You guys may or may not have seen my most recent video talking about this laptop. Incredibly powerful. Now, some of you guys may have noticed that I do also have a MacBook Pro. You might have seen that in the Notion video, which was just before this video. They go honestly pretty hand in hand. What NVIDIA Studio has been doing with the hardware and software in these Windows laptops has been really, really impressive. This thing renders like a beast. So I kind of go back and forth on using these things, but I've been really enjoying the NV15 lately. But moving into the main compartment of the bag, this bag is separated into two sort of sections. This main top compartment that we just talked about, you can actually drop a little Velcro panel on the inside of it and use this as one big bag, but currently it's separated out into two sections where I have the camera cube in the bottom. This obviously has all of the fun gear. So let's start out with the main thing. Of course, you guys all know my Sony a7 III. This thing has been my do-it-all workhorse camera for give or take the last, what, 3 years, I think? This thing has been literally all over the place with me. This is what I used to shoot the 50 HP project, so literally all 50 states. I took this to Nigeria. I've used this for commercial work. I've used this for corporate work. I've used this for documentary style work. I've used this for literally everything. Great for photos, great for video, has an amazing 4K image. I really still don't think I've fully gotten everything out of this camera. I still think it's a plenty good camera. In particular, over the last year, some of you guys have noticed, I've made a pretty dramatic shift in the style of my content here on YouTube. Much more focused on storytelling and filmmaking. In that shift, it's forced me to really slow down on the entire content creation process, really focusing on things like storyboarding, and especially when filming, actually crafting those shots. When I've really taken the time to dial in the conditions when shooting with this camera, I've been continually impressed with the image I've been able to create with it. Obviously, we have the new Sony a7S III, which just got announced, which, yeah, I need that. I need that camera. Really want that camera. Obviously, as you guys can see, I have the battery grip on the bottom here. This actually isn't the Sony battery grip. This is one I got off Amazon. It's Mikey. I'm not entirely sure. I'll have a link to it down below. But battery grip, quite simply, is a grip that adds a little bit extra battery life. You get dual battery slots, but the main reason that I personally really like using this is it adds some weight to the camera. It also extends the grip so you have more of your actual hand on the camera. This improves the amount of contact you have with it, therefore improving your stabilization. So if you're doing handheld work, which I do a lot of, the grip helps to remove just a little bit more of that jitter that we all hate so much. Now, the lens on here, you guys might know that I have loved using the Tamron 28-75 2.8. This is a seriously good alternative to the 24-70 G Master from Sony, which is like a 2000, how much is that lens? So it's a lot of money. It's big, it's heavy. The side-by-side comparisons of this lens to that lens, it's very, very shocking how good this performs. And it's literally less than half the cost. I think this goes for like $900. It's an incredible value. If you guys are looking for a good lens for your full frame Sony mirrorless cameras, definitely check out some of the lenses from Tamron. So moving on to the next lens. This is also from Tamron. This is the 17-28 millimeter f2.8. This is another direct competition to basically the Sony G Master series. As you guys all know, the 16-35 f2.8, another incredible lens, also like $2,000+ and big and heavy. This is Tamron's competitor to that lens. Same thing, we've got a nice small compact lens. It's a fixed 2.8, a seriously good value. Take a look at these if you guys are interested. The next lens that I have is kind of a new addition to the kit. This one I've been having a ton of fun with. So this is a vintage Russian film lens. This is actually for a Leica mount camera, but I have an adapter for Sony E-mount. This is the Helios 44-2. This is a 58 millimeter lens. I know the name made that a little bit confusing. It's an f2. It's a super unique prime lens that has this amazing vintage look. I mean, the out of focus, like bokeh of the image just looks so interesting. It's so film-like. And then I actually have this anamorphic filter on the front of this. Now you guys might be like, whoa, okay, anamorphic, like how expensive is this lens? This is actually just a really simple thread-on filter, and it doesn't necessarily actually emulate an anamorphic lens, but what it does do is gives us those horizontal flares that everybody knows from anamorphic lenses. This doesn't do anything to the image in terms of like squeezing it. It doesn't affect the actual aspect ratio whatsoever. It just gives us those flares. You can find these, this is from VidAtlantic. I got this a while ago. It just threads onto the front of this guy. And so combined this lens with all its vintage characteristics and the little filter on the front of it, and we get a really unique look that kind of looks anamorphic in a way. A lot of the visuals you guys saw in the NVIDIA video at the very beginning, those cool sort of interesting ambient shots, close-ups of the laptop itself were all shot with this lens. Super fun, and you can actually get these things surprisingly cheap on eBay. You can usually find them for like under $100. The filter is like maybe 50 bucks. Definitely check this thing out. So the next thing I have in here is my filter pouch. This one's from Tiffin. And of course in here we've got a bunch of filters. The first one is the Peter McKinnon Polar Pro Variable ND. This is honestly one of the best variable NDs I've ever used. It has little to no color shift, which is the thing that I personally hate the most about using variable ND filters. Also, really doesn't do anything to sharpness or just overall image quality, so this thing always travels with me no matter what. The next one I have in here is a circular polarizer. This one's from B+W. Don't use this all that often, but every once in a while if you're shooting water or glass, you need a polarizer. And then we've got kind of a new addition to my kit and my filmmaking process overall. These are black Pro Mist filters. I have two of them. I have a 1/8 and then also a 1/4. If you guys have never heard of a black Pro Mist filter, effectively what they do is they soften your image up a little bit, which sounds counterintuitive. Like we're shooting with 4K cameras, I mean, in some cases 6K or even 8K, so like why would you want to soften your image? Well, if you look in Hollywood, if you look at movies that are shot on film, they're not that crisp and sharp. They have plenty of detail, but there's a difference between detail and sharpness. Nowadays, most cameras, like for example, the Sony a7 III or the Panasonic S1H, which we're shooting on right now, they're insanely sharp. And so when dialing in the settings on these cameras, you'll often see people recommend to turn down the sharpness as far as it can possibly go, because you're gonna add it in post, which is just a better option overall, but just mainly the fact that we don't want these ridiculously digital sharp looking images. it. So filters, for example, these black Pro Mist filters, there's a variety of different ones out there, but basically they soften up your image, which helps to kind of give that little bit more film kind of vintage feel. Another characteristic these filters have is it blooms the brightest parts of your image, like the highlights. So for example, like back over my shoulder here, we have this little Fresnel light that's pointing. It's a practical light inside of the shot. It makes a nice little glow around it, which looks just much more film and cinematic. These things are really awesome. They obviously come in various intensities. The 1/8 is less intense. I'll use this more often than not, just all the time on my camera, just to take the edge off just a little bit. But we also have the 1/4, which is a little bit more intense, which will bloom the highlights even more. They even make stronger ones than this. But I've been really enjoying using these in my filmmaking process, just to keep trying new things and kind of keep pushing away from that digital look and continually get a little bit more filmic, which is obviously what everybody wants. The next thing we have in here is, of course, the trusty Rode VideoMic Pro. This is the Plus, the one that has the built-in battery. I used to have the original Pro, and I never thought that I was gonna want to upgrade to the Plus. I didn't see the price really being justifiable to me, but the one feature that has stood out to me the most when using this microphone is the fact that it automatically turns on when it's connected to your camera. There has been just like countless amounts of times that I've had the VideoMic Pro, the original one, on my camera. I've gone out to shoot stuff and just completely forgot to turn on the microphone for like a significant portion of shooting. It has completely ruined multiple vlogs for me back when I used to vlog all the time. I really didn't think that I was going to need it, but honestly, the feature has been amazing. And plus, the built-in rechargeable battery is amazing too. Really highly recommend these microphones. I mean, pretty much every YouTuber uses them at this point for good reason. And the last thing that I have here in the camera compartment is just a couple of extra batteries for the A7 III. These kind of tend to just float around the bag in pretty much any random pocket. Now, also on the back side here, there's a little zipper, kind of mesh pouch, and inside I keep a little Think Tank SD card pouch. This thing is super awesome. Some of you guys might remember in the last camera bag video I did, I had a red one of these little card pouches from Canon, but I don't see any Canon here, so this one instead. But that's pretty much it. That's what I have in my bag. It's still pretty minimal for the most part. The bag itself doesn't hold a ton of gear, but it holds everything that I need it to. And I don't want a bag that has like excess space that I'm not going to use, because it's just gonna be a bigger, bulkier backpack. I personally really like bags that look sleek, that look minimal, that look everyday. It's always annoying walking around with a bag that looks like a camera tech nerd bag, if you know what I mean, with all the little straps on the side of it and shit, and it's just like, ugh. It's really great just how modular and flexible this backpack is. You can take out the entire camera cube, and then, like I said, you could fold down that middle flap that separates the top and bottom of the bag, and then it just becomes one big open main compartment, just like an everyday backpack that you can use for anything, for traveling or for the gym or school, whatever you need it to. That's one thing Brevity really tends to strive for in all of their backpacks, is versatility. So you can use it for multiple things other than just camera equipment. So if you guys like this bag and are interested, be sure to click the link down below. They have a variety of different styles as well. Like I said, like rucksack styles, kind of more adventure style. They even have one that's even smaller than this, that's still sort of designed the same way to be kind of an everyday backpack, called the Jumper, which I haven't got to try yet. So Dylan, if you're watching this, it'd be cool to check out one of the jumpers maybe. But at the end of the day, the gear that I have in my bag really hasn't changed much over the last couple of years. I mean, obviously I'm still using a Sony full frame mirrorless. I have a couple more lenses than I used to. I really try to keep my bags fairly minimal. This is a bag that I'm using pretty much every day on the go. If I were going out to shoot for a client, a commercial production or something along those lines, this isn't everything that would be in the bag, and I would also probably have a couple of hard cases with me. Vice versa, if I was going on a hiking trip or something like that, I mean, I would probably have a couple more things here and there. Also, I have my FPV gear bag, so if you guys are interested to see what's in my FPV gear bag, be sure to comment that down below. I have more videos coming about FPV, so don't worry. If you guys are interested in seeing more about the various types of gear I use for different types of productions, just leave a comment down below and we'll probably do a video about it. But for just run and gun shooting, if I'm going out to shoot with some friends or I'm shooting a YouTube video, more often than not, this is all the gear that's gonna be with me, the everyday essentials, if you will. will. All this gear is, of course, very fun to talk about, and I know a lot of us can get very obsessive over the gear we use, but it's important to remember that gear should not be something that is an excuse for you to not go execute a project or go out and actually create. It's important to make sure that the gear you're using isn't slowing you down, but don't allow it to become an actual excuse for you to not just go out and shoot stuff. So, with that being said, I think I'm gonna wrap up the video here, guys. Thank you so much for watching. Be sure to give the video a thumbs up, subscribe if you haven't already, and I'll see you in the next video.